Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Privilege Pulse. I know it's been a while. Your girl has been working. I am entering a new phase of life. I am about to turn 25, which is a big deal for me. I traditionally celebrate my birthday the entire month, and every birthday I create a new vision board to lead me into my new year of life. Yes, I'm one of those people that celebrates the new year on their birthday and not the actual new year of December 31st. I don't do that. Every year I'm reborn on my birthday. I'm a Libra and I'm really excited about this particular birthday. I've decided to really pour into myself and not feel FOMO or feeling like I need to do certain things to really tee up this birthday and really feel like I'm doing something spectacular for the internet. That's something I'm personally learning, is not serving myself, which is trying to keep up with the Joneses and do a lot of things that don't really feed my social battery and don't really respect who I am as a person socially. I am traditionally an introvert and I'm introverted in spaces where I feel very comfortable. I feel very welcome. Maybe welcome isn't the word, but I'm very extroverted in spaces where I feel like I belong there and I know that I own this shit. And that tends to be spaces that are design and fashion based and whatever else it may be. And it also tends to be moments when I am hosting people in my home. So, in the essence of that, I am actually just hosting a birthday brunch this year. So, for my birthday, I'm hosting a pink and bougie and boozy brunch in my apartment, and it's going to be amazing. I'm working on the menu now, and of course, I'm inviting the people that I love, that I really want around me, and I've already gotten RSVPs, so the excitement is there. I get to decorate, getting a new table to put out for guests. It's going to be wonderful. But in the midst of all of that, I'm also in my journey back to grad school. I've been working in corporate for 2 years and some months, and the deal with myself when I initially graduated from college was to go get an MBA after so many years in corporate. And I've transitioned from that, and I'm pivoting to go pursue another design or education related degree. But I'm sharing all this to share that sometimes you got to take care of you, and that means you might not be as accessible to people, and people might get upset or frustrated with you or feel like you're acting different or you're trying to be different or be the black sheep. And I'm not saying that's how you all are, but in my own personal life, I've experienced people who don't quite understand me going into a period of solitude so that I can really make decisions around what's best for me in my future. You know, I'm entering my frontal lobe development era, and the last thing I want to do is center that on other people and what other people want for me. It's about what I want for myself. It's about what I want to do for myself, or I see myself in the next 2 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. I want a family within the next 5 years. Let's be real. I want to have children. I want to be married. I want to have a stable enough career where I don't need to be traveling all over the place like I'm traveling now, but I'm enjoying it now because I know where I want to be in the next few years. So, this episode is about the reality of being the black sheep and how your pretty privilege and its benefits can create challenges in your dynamics with others. And those people can be people that you love, it can be people that you don't like, people that hate on you. It can just be people in your everyday life that you have no indifference towards, like you are pretty indifferent about them. Um, but what I've learned about myself in the last 6 to 8 months while making this transition and these decisions for myself is that I have to pull back from the things that aren't serving me. I have to pull back from the activities and things that are really draining me, and I had to clear my mind. And part of that meant stepping away from my family. Toxic family culture and behavior, we're all too familiar with it. And also stepping away from friendships that aren't serving you stepping away from this idea that you need a cult or a clique to be happy, to have a healthy social life, and for someone who's in a healthy romantic relationship, also pouring into myself as much as I'm pouring into that relationship. And, you hear about, when people really pour into like unhealthy relationships, they lose themselves. But I think the same thing can happen if you're in something very healthy. And I'm a Libra. Like, I love love. I kind of knew this about myself, but when I really love somebody and care about them, I would give my all. And so I have to have some red tape there to protect myself and maintain myself and my own well being, because that's who I was before a relationship, and that's who I need to be during one, and continue to be that person regardless of what's going on in my life at work, in school, which we'll get into, etc., etc. Sometimes I have to take a step back and really evaluate, what is it that I'm doing? How is it serving me? Does this feed into the life that I envision for myself? And I've been seeing this activity on Pinterest posts and TikToks a lot, where people are building out, the dream life, or what's the day to day of someone who lives this dream life for me, either using ChatGPT to do it or just reflecting for themselves. And when I tell you that it is an activity that I think is really powerful, because manifesting has so much power in rendering the life that you want to live. And there's also a dark side to that, because in order to accept and embrace and endorse a new version of yourself, you have to let the old version of you go. There is not room for both. You can absolutely have your core values and not change who you are as a person, but there are a lot of habits and qualities and things that don't align with that person you want to become. So you need to shift and move forward. And in order to move forward, you have to let things go. You have to identify your baggage at check-in and decide, hey, I'm actually not going to pay the extra way for this bag to come with me to my destination, because I don't need it. Like, why am I trying to bring swimsuits and bikinis when I'm going to Alaska? Like, let's say the ideal you is a destination and it's Alaska. Why are you trying to bring swimsuits and stuff? That's what you had in Miami. That's what you had when you were that person. But now you're going to be this person who needs an Eskimo or needs coats and furs. You need to pack the right things with you. And in order to do that, you're going to have to spend time researching and understanding, oh, what is it that I'm going to need here? What is it that I want? Okay, these are the things I need to acquire. These are the skills that I need to get. These are the habits that I need to cultivate. And in order to do that, you are going to have to go through some period of isolation. And before you think, oh my gosh, isolation just means I'm all alone and, I don't tell people about my moves, I'm quiet. Like, isolation doesn't mean that you don't talk to people ever. Like, even during my isolation period this past year, I still talk to my friends. We still check in. We still talk about our goals. But again, these are people that are so similar minded to me and equally ambitious that we can talk about these things, and it's not a draining conversation. It's not a conversation where I feel like, I told people too much of my juice and now I feel like I won't be able to accomplish my goals. Be very strategic about it. Love these people, be authentic with them, but that you don't need to be talking about something that you haven't started. If you're talking about applications to a program and you haven't even submitted it, get the stuff done first, then talk about it with people. Or if you know yourself enough to know you're going to get it done, and maybe you just need a little conversation or energy boost from a friend, set up a work session. I have a friend where we're setting up calls to actually work on grad applications together. That's the type of isolation but beneficial communication you should be having with people. No, we're not popping out to go clubbing. No, we're not popping out to go do this and that. Like, we are isolating in our homes, but we're, talking to each other. We're having a network, open line of communication to push each other closer to our goals. So without further ado, I just want to go ahead and jump to this video, because it's really important that you understand there are levels to isolation. And if you've been the black sheep in your family, you've been the black sheep in your friend group, you've been the black sheep in your life, you're going to relate to this, you're going to understand this, and you're going to know that isolation is necessary sometimes, and it's not always a bad thing. Okay, so as I like to start, I want to tell you all what the outcomes of this video are, and these are the insights and things that I hope for you to leave knowing, or just thinking about, honestly. You don't have to believe it or take it at face value, but I really want you to start reflecting on these things. The first one is understand the true responsibility of being the black sheep in your family or in your blank. You fill in whatever the group is that you're a part of. It might be your sorority, it might be your friend group, it might be your church, whatever you need to put in there. The next one is have awareness of the threats to your mission of value if you follow generational cycles and curses. I'll read that one again. One of the outcomes is I want you to have awareness of the threats to your mission of value if you follow generational cycles and curses. The next is have the confidence to stand in your truth and not be swayed by group thought. Self-explanatory. Group thought is at an all-time high. It is the real pandemic, aside from what's really going around that's actually affecting people's health. But I think that group thought is really affecting people's mental. And of course, people are behaving in physical ways because of their mental. And it's alarming and disturbing. And me and my friends talk about it a lot. But group thought is not a cute thing. It's not a sexy thing. It's not a good thing. And the final outcome is I want you to find comfort in your personal mission to either forge away and possibly forge and withstand it alone. Oh, that one is so powerful. This is honestly something that my partner tells me a lot because we came up with similar upbringings, families that were seemingly supportive in ways, again, that were beneficial to them. And the moment that we started diverging off into our own paths to figure out ourselves and pursue our own goals, we became villainous and we became alone almost, to a point where it's like, okay, who do I really have around me? Who's really my village? And of course, I have my friends, have my mentors, but family is just something that you feel should always be there. And so when family isn't there, you really learn how to stand on your own. Everybody came into this world alone. You're going to leave it alone. You're going to die as an individual. But what's really going to separate you from walking around in group thought and just doing what the herd is doing is being able to withstand on your own path and have the confidence to do so, regardless of what other people think of you, regardless of how you're seen, regardless of what the circumstances of the world might be around you, because you're making that decision. Sometimes the world is not going to reward you for choosing you. It's the universe. It's a balance to it. You'll get rewarded, you'll get punished, whatever the case may be. But it's important that you can stand your ground because you know it's what's right for you. So let's just hop into this topic. To start things off, we all know what a black sheep is, but for the sake of congruence and making sure we're all aligned, let me specify. In my video, the way I'm defining a black sheep is a different thinker or operating differently than a cohort may. An example is, there's a lot of teenage pregnancies in your family, but you don't have a baby as a teenager. Maybe you're in your 20s now, your 30s or 40s, and you might have a kid, but you didn't have a child in your teen years. So you stand out. You're the black sheep. You're the person who made a different set of choices that did not lead them down the same path as their other family members. Other example is just like there's a lot of drug addicts, but you don't do drugs. Like it's pretty self-explanatory. You're just someone who operates differently from the group that you're around. And you can be a black sheep in different types of groups and have different qualities about you that make you that black sheep that might not be a black sheep quality in another group. So for example, in my job, like, oh my gosh, I'm not a coffee drinker. I only drink matcha. But if I were to go around some of my other friends, I'm not the only matcha drinker. It's not something that's going to make me stand out, something we all share, but at work, it makes me stand out among my teammates. So it's going to change depending on what context, whatever group, or whatever environment you're in. But if you are a black sheep in any environment, then you are a black sheep in that environment. And you need to really hone in and understand why you're the black sheep, what's great about it, how can you benefit from it, and how can you get closer to your goals. That's all that means. Too often, people try to convince us that thinking differently, moving differently, operating differently means, oh, you're a bad person, or you're a weird person, or you're not doing things right, or oh, you're doing things different. You need to follow in line. Why? If you naturally don't follow the grain, own that. You don't owe anybody subscription or followership doing what they do because they're trying to make you feel bad that you do things differently. The fact that you even stood out enough for them to notice you're doing things differently means that you're doing something right, and they might be upset about it, and so now they're trying to shame you for it. And shaming tactics are very often used against pretty privileged women, whether that's people shaming you for thinking you're pretty, or trying to say, oh, you think, or you're conceited because you think you're pretty, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, and who's going to check me on it? Okay, you made your point. Now what? There's usually no line of action afterwards other than you groveling at them or making them feel better about themselves. But then it's like, so now you want to be the person on the pedestal? But you already put me on one in your mind. So why would I put you on one in my mind when I'm on my own pedestal in my mind? That's the real tea, is that when you're a black sheep, you're going to stand out. And when you stand out, you have a higher chance of being put on a pedestal in someone else's mind. And as any natural human would, that probably would make them uncomfortable. It would make them jealous. It might make them envious. And now they want to call you out for it because you think that you can get up in their mind, in their groove, and be in their heads, and you can. And you're not even trying. Like, own your power. You're not even trying. You're not even trying. Okay. And I've also mentioned this a lot recently in this video so far, but groupthink or group thought. So this is a noun, and the way I'm defining it is it's a series of beliefs and associated actions that have been deemed acceptable by one or more people and can be made into a social opinion. There's a lot of group thought on the internet. I mean, just go check your own TikTok, go check your Instagram, go check. I think those are the two apps that have like videos and reels and stuff that people can make. But essentially, for example, my TikTok knows that I'm in a relationship, so there's a lot of relationship talk that I get. Now, when I was single, it was a lot of single talk I got, and a lot of it was the rhetoric that, oh, men are trash, and da da da, like a lot of manifesting just like terrible experiences with men. And of course, if you're only listening to that or following that, you're going to behave off of that. And a lot of it was this like Rouse or City Girl talk. I don't support the City Girl agenda. I don't hate anybody who does, but it just doesn't work for me. I'm a lover, and if I'm dating you or I'm talking to one person, I'm going to just talk to you. And when I'm just talking to that person, I give them that time and attention. But, you know, some people hate it, some people love it. That's my own personal MO. It makes me a black sheep among many other pretty privileged women who are choosing to have rousters of 10 men. And again, no judgment, because I love what I do for me, and you should love what you do for you. It doesn't affect me how you move, and it shouldn't affect you how I move. But what I notice is groupthink, because it gets likes and it gets follows and it gets trending and it gets reposts, people start to think, oh, this is how I should think because so many people approve, so many people agree with it. Why wouldn't I want to be on that right side of the internet? And now we have people who are literally picking their personalities from group thought. And it's scary. It's really scary, actually, because where are the personalities? Where is the unique beauty and all of the wonderful people that were put on this earth? Why are a lot of people choosing to just be internet city girl versions of themselves? Why? Where are the women who have different standards, or the women who think differently? And I'm using the example of dating and city girls because that's a group thought that pops up a lot on my own algorithms that I don't agree with, but it still comes up because, hey, it's the majority. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but majority of the world is women, and majority of the things that get sold to people are sold to women. Makeup, cosmetics, hair, clothing, brands, they're selling feelings to us. We're emotional. Of course, they're going to try to sell a feeling to us. Of course, they're going to try to sell the feeling of unity and the feeling of being popular and the feeling of being approved and accepted. So, of course, you're going to fall in line with that line of thinking because you know that you're going to get love for it. You know that you're going to get accepted for it. You know that you're going to feel all the good endorphins from it. And I'm not mad at you. I've been there. I've done that. As I mentioned earlier in this video, my frontal lobe has been lobing the last year of my life, and so I'm not there anymore. And I can talk from experience in the hopes of guiding people who are also curious about what it means to be a Black sheep and what it means to diverge from being a group thinker and just having a mind of your own. Not even just being a Black sheep, but just having a mind of your own. And if that's what makes you a Black sheep, then we all need to be Black sheeps. Hello. It's too many people in this world for us not to have our own unique combination of thoughts, values, laughs, styles, hair color. Like, it's too many of us. So when I see too many of us doing the same things, all I can theorize is group thought, group actions. It's not rocket science. And again, people will come into the knowledge of that in their own time if they're wanting the knowledge of it. You have to want that. And as I mentioned a little bit, just if you were someone to challenge group thought, you would be on the receiving end of shame or being questioned for why you think that way, then you're a Black sheep. That's also a way to tell if you're a Black sheep. When you bring up opinions or comments in a room around a group of people who think pretty similarly, and you say something and you're met with negative feelings or emotions or just outlooks from people, do you stand your ground? Because then that's a moment of you standing in your truth. Or do you dim it down? If you dim it down, you're going down the wrong direction with your Black sheep pathway. You need to go forward. You need to go forward. It's okay. That's normal. That just means you're not in the room with your people. You should still be in the room because other perspectives are important. I also want to call that out. Just because it's a group thought doesn't mean it's not a valuable thought to know or understand, simply because you should want to understand more about the world and how it's moving. So yeah, let me dig into this. The thing about being a Black sheep is, yes, you think differently from people, but don't think that your thoughts are the only ones that matter. Your thoughts are the only ones that matter for the decisions that you make in your life, and those things should affect your life. But you should still want to be knowledgeable of the world around you and the direction in which it's going, simply because it's going to have you that much more sharper and smarter to move throughout society. You should understand how other people think. You know that phrase, keep my friends close, my enemies closer. You should know how your opposing forces think so that you understand and you can strategize ahead of time. It should never be a situation where you think that, oh, I'm the Black sheep, so like I don't need to listen to y'all. You can still listen, but just be confident enough to stand in your own decision and be like, wow, like that was a really great point. I'm glad you shared that. I appreciate it. I still believe mine is what it is, and I'm not really willing to change it, but I'm glad that we can have dialogue. And that's when you have discourse with people. Discourse is when you have opposing views, but there's strength on both sides, and they're both willing to own their views. Now, that's something I do respect about people, regardless of if they're in group thought or not. They can stand their ground. And I just said there are a billion combinations of people in this world. So again, just because I'm having my own unique thoughts, that doesn't mean that somebody else in Switzerland can't have the same thoughts as me. We've just never met. We're not in the same room. I might encounter somebody in the same city as me and might have similar thoughts because of similar proximities to things. But again, I value people who can stand their ground with their thoughts. Even if it is a thought that a billion people share, that don't mean it's wrong, or that don't mean that it's stupid. It just means it's not the one that I share. I'm willing to learn. Be an intellect about it now. Don't be stubborn and don't be stupid about it. Okay. So what is the reality of being the Black sheep? And the added nuance of, oh, I'm the Black sheep because of my pretty privilege on top of other things. Maybe your intelligence privilege, whatever. The reality of it is this. You're going to stand out, and not ironically, where you're intentionally doing things just to say you're different. You have to do things just to say you're different. You might not be the black sheep on accident. And this is really for people who are black sheeps on accident. An accident meaning you're just naturally being you and you always go against the grain with people. The reality of it is you naturally veer off from group behavior and think when being the best version of yourself. That's important. Are you thinking these thoughts? Are you having these thoughts while you're in the best state of mind for yourself, when you're taking care of yourself, when you're being the best version of yourself, when you're being confident? Or you having these thoughts or thinking these things, but you're really mousy about it. You're really scared to be about it. Then you're not really standing in your black sheepness. Then you're cheating yourself out of being able to provide. Because here's the other piece. I mentioned listening to other people for their perspective so that you can learn. You are cheating other people from understanding a new perspective by being too fearful of sharing yours. You have to open up. And again, I am speaking to myself as I talk to you. I'm speaking from experience as someone who loves to sit in my observant mode, very quiet, introverted state. When I'm in a room with people who all think the same, I can't tell you how much it bothers me at the end of a meeting or something when I didn't say something, because I knew that I had a different idea or thought, and I knew that I had something to say. Like even today, freaking call that I had, and we were just talking about whether or not we want to do a particular module at the beginning or end of a session. We designed these workshops for clients, and one of my teammates said, you know what, I'm okay with leaving it where it's at right now. We can talk about it, revisit it later. It was some silence. I did have a thought about moving it to the end. And then one of my other teammates, she started talking, and this is all through Zoom too, which the lag doesn't help with like the comfort of speaking, but I'm learning to get past that. Previous Zoom graduate from the university. So I'm like, come on, you got this. And she agreed. And that was kind of that. And I still had an opinion. I didn't really say anything. And while no, it wasn't the best thing for me to just be quiet and not say anything, it also wasn't like a big battle or deal. I also want you to balance the moments when like it might be really critical for you to speak and the moments when it's not that critical, so you don't need to be hard on yourself. In that moment, again, because this job, it really isn't something that I'm lifelong prolonging for my career and my livelihood. Like this job doesn't fill up my cup. But sometimes I really don't care. And it's like, okay, whatever. I have enough on my plate as it is. I don't feel like prolonging a conversation that can just be done. And we were at the end of that call. So that's also why I was just like, yeah, not worth it. But you deprive other people of a valuable perspective when you choose to be silent. So think of it that way. If you are someone who has a very philanthropic sense of self, maybe it's important for you to think about it in this paradigm. The moments when I choose not to speak up on my perspective, no matter how different or similar it is, I cheat the people in the room of learning something different or understanding me more. And this can help with your relationships, your family, your friendships. You delay people's understanding of you more when you don't share what you really think. And you can give them the power to accept or deny it after, but you have the power to share yourself. And the more you share yourself and the more you stand in that, the more you just build that brand for yourself that this is who you are. And you can shift and twist your brand, whatever, but your thoughts are your thoughts, and nobody is going to know what you're thinking unless you tell them. So the real thing is, it all boils down to people wanting to, now I want to talk a little bit about the threats that you might experience. And one of the outcomes was, having awareness of the threats to your mission of value. So mission of value simply means your mission, meaning whether your mission is to communicate thoughts related to a specific religious belief, or what you believe about well-being or health, or what you believe about fitness, or what you believe about creativity or your career, whether you work in healthcare, or what you believe about medicine, or what you believe about science, engineering, whatever you believe about whatever. That's all mission of value means. The threats that you're going to encounter when you are in a room with people and everyone's thinking one way and you think another way within that same realm, The biggest thing you need to remember about these threads is that it all boils down to people wanting to use you for what you offer. Having boundaries and prioritizing your own everyday practice of valuing yourself means that people are not needed to validate you anymore. So before you get into these rooms where you're having these conversations with people and you're having these discourses, you're going to get to a place in your life where you need to really firmly understand yourself. And in order to do that, I talked about this at the beginning of today's video, you have to isolate. And isolation looks different for everybody. Sometimes you really do need to just go 6 months heads down. You're just going to the gym, or you're just going to the coffee shop, or you're just working, or you're just at home and you're not going out with people, you're not drinking, you're not smoking, whatever. Isolation is going to look different for everybody. There's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way to do it. But you have to do it. That's the thing. You have to do it. And the longer you prolong your isolation of understanding self, you are going to always just be in a state of unsureness and chaos with yourself, or always flowing with whatever is coming your way, or making decisions that aren't strategic or logical for where you're at in your life. And from experience, I can say not knowing myself fully enough to really pour into myself caused me a lot of emotional harm and a lot of psychological harm that I've had to unwire and rewire, that I'm working through in therapy to this day. And I'm in a much better, healthier place that I can proclaim things that I know I want to work on, that I know need to be worked on, and I can actually have a action plan for it. I know it's not a job, it's not a corporate thing. Don't read action plan as an actual action plan, but I have strategies to get through things that are hard for me, whether that's communicating or using my voice, or, and part of this is, again, being a black sheep. No, that's not something I talk about. It's like I need to get better at it, but part of being a black sheep is simply being comfortable with your voice, using your voice, choosing to speak up, whether or not you have the floor, choosing to let yourself be heard. And when you are constantly around other people who might be louder than you, or people who might be more comfortable with themselves, one or two things can happen. You can either get motivated and feel inspired to be more of yourself. And I get that with my partner, very extroverted, outgoing person, and has similar tendencies to me to just isolate, to kind of recharge. I get that from him because his confidence is so contagious. I have nothing but the drive and motivation to show up and be myself 100% and not let myself fade and wither to the side. And that's the second thing that can happen, is when you're around people like that, it can swallow you and it can consume you. And that might be your family. That might be the people who are the group thought thinkers, where they're so loud because it's so many of them that you're like, well, and now I'm like uncomfortable. I don't really want to talk. Like you're grabbing your arms, you're scratched, like you're a little afraid to talk because you're outnumbered. And that outnumbering can feel so isolating in a room full of people, or so isolating in a big friend group, or so isolating at a job. And you have to push past that mental block that being different makes you alone. Because being different, or being the black sheep, is actually what's going to make you stronger to be able to walk into a room full of anybody. Because sometimes people who are part of the group thought, they can't leave that room. They have to stay where they're comfortable. They have to stay where they're accepted, because their own mental strength can only handle being in an environment where people get exactly what they're thinking. If you were to put them in a room with people who thought completely differently from them, and they didn't have the mental strength to handle that, to be able to hold discourse, to be able to have the strength to own their position, they would crumble. And so what you're feeling is that version of them crumbling in a room. But I'm telling you that you have to push past that. that the beauty of how you think and what you can do with who you are is on the other side of you choosing to be strong in environments where you might be the only person there, with your perspective, with your experience, with your identity, with whatever the case may be. Because being a black sheep goes beyond just thinking differently. It goes to your identities. You might be the only black person in a room. You have to, black sheep, black person, but you get it. You have to choose strength, because if you can withstand in a room of people who think pineapple on pizza is a great thing and you personally think it should just be sausage and pepperoni, then you can go into a room of people who think that spinach on pizza is great and you can still stay in your position. But the people who just like pineapple, they're not going to go into a room full of more people that think differently than them. No, they're going to kind of stick there where they're at, where there's majority. People are going to stay in their herds most of the time. It's the people who can move and maneuver and be fluid throughout different groups of people that are dangerous. And that's where you need to be. That's where the real danger is. That's why it matters. Because if you can walk to a room of anybody and be able to hold a conversation and hold your ground and hold your own, the respect level goes up. Man, does that respect level go up. Stand on it. Stand on it. And then you're probably asking yourself, well, why does it matter to stand out and be true to myself and have that strength? Personally, I realized at 24 that my cross to bear is the reality of we come into this world alone and we'll leave it alone. I am the only person who has me 100% and has to hold me at 100%, even if it's an inconvenience to the people around me. Even if it's an inconvenience to my partner, if it's inconvenience to my best friends, inconvenience to my family, I have to stand true to who I am. Either you like me, you love me, or you hate me for it. That's your choice. But my choice is to be true to myself, because I can sleep at night knowing that I chose me. I chose me being me. And I didn't choose because of fear for somebody else's own perception of me, or for fear of how someone else was going to choose to love me or show. I didn't choose out of fear. I chose out of love. And that's the biggest thing, is make sure you're choosing out of love for yourself and not out of fear of somebody else and their actions. Because again, you can't control anyone else's actions. So why are you playing dumb, making decisions off of things you can't control? Make a decision off of what you can't control, yourself. Like, yeah. And I can just speak from experience. I was previously financially and emotionally manipulated by my family, and even spiritually, in a sense. You know, I would get, one of my parents would use God as a way to try to bring me down and like make me not have boundaries when it came to my finances, and convince me that I'm living wrong and da 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 da. Whole time I'm just having regular boundaries, like having boundaries on my personal life, having boundaries on my finances, having boundaries for my mental health, and that would frustrate them. So that's my own testimony. It's just like, and that broke me down to the point where I basically had nothing in my bank accounts. And then I was like, oh no, that's not going to work for me. What's the core of this? And the core of this is I'm letting other people walk over me. I'm letting other people choose for me. I'm letting other people make decisions for me. And I'm not making decisions for myself. And I need to listen to know what it is that I need. And that's why I isolated. That's why I got to where I am. That's why I'm entering my frontal lobe era with very clear alignment and understanding of what got to go and what gets to come in. Period. So ask yourself this. Does it matter to make yourself more palatable for others' comfort or your own? And look at comfort for yourself as something that's fluid, because you should push yourself outside of your comfort zone to grow. But with where you're at right now, does it make more sense for you to make yourself palatable to other people who are finicky? They're going to change. People are going to be so unpredictable. Or should you be palatable for yourself? Because you're going to be consistent with yourself. Because you know you're going to be in yourself your whole life. You know that you can understand yourself. And then are you going to dedicate the time to understanding yourself so that you can do what you need to do for you? You should answer for you. And if you don't, this video is for you. Especially as a pretty woman with that privilege of being seen and visible, you're naturally a black sheep in most rooms. It's a lot of beautiful women in this world, and it's a lot of rooms in this world. And the odds of you being one of the few pretty women in the room are very high. It's very high. Like sometimes I forget how beautiful I am until I go out and I'm like, what's with all this damn attention? I'm like, oh, okay. Because like I just be chilling. Like I said, I'm an introvert. I be chilling sometimes. I don't really popping out like that, but when I do pop out, I pop out and it's a party. So sometimes you might have to just remind yourself, you are her. You are her. You're gonna stand out. You're gonna be a black sheep naturally, baby. So you need to stand in that and own it and love it. It ain't a bad thing. People are gonna try to attach themselves to you, and you'll mirror that feeling if you allow that by trying to attach yourself to other people so they can validate your existence or validate your thoughts. Don't let that happen. You want friends and not fans. You want a man and not a fan. He should be a fan of yours, don't get me wrong, but you want the right balance of somebody that respects you as a partner and not somebody that's just treating you like a celebrity and gonna hold you to being the best version of you, okay? You don't need anyone to validate your existence. As a pretty privileged woman, you're going to experience people coming to you for advice, for help, and everything else under the sun. You are. And that comes with the added result that some things will come easy to you as a pretty woman. Money, opportunities, success. People are naturally going to give you these things because they believe you've already earned it. You already have your social quota for your life because you're beautiful. People validate you before someone else. So don't be surprised when you cut people off for the validation they provided and they villainize you for being a bad person because now you're not philanthropic to your own detriment. I'm going to read that again. People will validate you very quickly. They will. And then you'll find yourself cutting off those same people if you try to use that validation they gave you to make yourself seem like you have it like that. They'll villainize you because you're not giving things out to them, because you have boundaries. When you have boundaries, you're going to set some people off wrong because they're used to having a certain level of access to you, and they think that they have this access to you simply because they validated you in your existence. Oh, now you have these boundaries. And if you have those, then you value you and you don't need external validation, meaning you don't need them, but they certainly need you. I'm going to read that again. Once you have boundaries, that signals to people, oh, they value themselves. They don't need external validation. They don't need me to validate them. But they need you. They need you so that they can validate you, so that they can act. They need you to validate them. Okay? And that's why when you have a different opinion in the room, use it. They'll villainize you for it, but you need to have that boundary. I'm not going to let nobody walk me to the left when I know I should be going right. And I'll listen to you while you going to the left, but that don't mean I got to follow you. That don't mean I got to follow you. I hope that you all enjoyed listening to today's video. Again, this was about being the black sheep and how you need to own it. And being a black sheep can look very different for everybody, particularly for my pretty privileged woman. You're going to naturally be the black sheep in the room because you are beautiful externally. And to top it all off, if you got a good personality, a good heart, oh my gosh, they're coming for you. Speaking from personal experience, they're coming for us. And what you need to do is protect yourself. You need to have boundaries. You need to be very clear about who you are. And in order to do that, you might need to self-isolate in whatever way, shape, or form makes the most sense for you in your life. and you need to set clear boundaries coming out of that isolation so that nobody can try you and nobody can get to you, because you are your bodyguard, you are your queen, you are your goddess. Nobody can get to you. I love y'all. Please continue to follow the page, and I look forward to sharing more topics with you soon. Bye. This was Privilege Pulse.